Apple just released the new M5 MacBook Air with a faster M5 chip, double the storage, faster SSD speeds, and a higher starting price. I didn't see that coming, and I definitely didn't see Apple also raising the starting price of the M5 MacBook Pro, the one they released in October. So now both of these laptops are more expensive, so which one should you buy, and what are things you should know before you purchase any of these laptops? Now, yes, I do not have the new M5 MacBook Air. This is the M4 version, but most of the changes here are things that Apple has already updated with their M5 MacBook Pro, which I do own, and things like the form factor, the display, the ports have received no changes. So I can make some fair assumption about the differences between these devices before pre-orders go up, so you can make an informed buying decision. So first of all, let's go over what's new with the M5 MacBook Air, because there's a few more changes and options that you haven't been able to do on a MacBook Air ever before. Now, yes, the big feature is the M5 chip. This is going to get you around a 20% increase in CPU performance over the M4 and around a 30% increase in GPU performance. It also now has neural accelerators, which gives it up to 4 times faster performance for AI workloads. Basically, all the same things that we already saw with the M5 MacBook Pro release are just now put into the super thin and lightweight design of the MacBook Air, which also means that Apple has also updated the networking chip in here to the new N1 chip, which grants the MacBook Air Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 6. Besides that, the biggest upgrade from my point of view is doubling the storage, because the M5 MacBook Air now starts at 512 gigabytes of storage as opposed to the old 256 gigabyte option. And Apple has also made the storage twice as fast as before, which again, they also did in the M5 MacBook Pro, which did result in some really fast read and write speeds, even on the base models. On top of that, Apple will now also let you configure the MacBook Air with more storage than ever before, because there's now a new 4 terabyte option. That is a lot of storage for a MacBook Air. I need to know who out there is putting 4 terabytes on their MacBook Air. But yes, basically all the chip, storage, the networking upgrades that the M5 MacBook Pro received are now just here on the MacBook Air. And yes, the starting price is now $100 more than the previous M4 version. But don't be fooled, because Apple technically didn't raise the prices if you're comparing the 512 gigabyte version of the M4. They actually lowered it by $100, and the same is true for that M5 MacBook Pro. They raised the starting price by $100, but it now comes with 1 terabyte of storage instead of 512 gigabytes, overall providing a better value if you are going for those storage upgrades. I have long said that 256 gigabytes is pretty low for a laptop, so I'm glad Apple eliminated that option and the Air now comes with 512 gigabytes, which I think is more than enough for most users. In the same breath, for pro users, especially dealing with large file sizes or downloading large applications, 512 gigabytes could also be kind of low, so making pros start at 1 terabyte feels more appropriate. Now, yes, you can view this starting price increase as a half glass empty or half glass full situation, depending on your level of optimism. My optimism is currently high for some reason. It's usually pretty low, but yeah, I'm gonna be nice to Apple here and say, overall, these are better values than before. Okay, let's go over configurations and decide which laptop is right for you. Now, yes, the M5 Air starts at $1,099 for 512 gigabytes of storage and 16 gigabytes of memory. Now, another area where you need to be careful is that old 512 gigabyte option on the M4 did actually give you a higher binned M4 chip with the full 10-core CPU and GPU. Now, this is still an option on the Air, but selecting it does bring it back to the $1,200 price point for this M5 version. I actually don't think most users need that higher end chip upgrade. It's highly unlikely that you're using a computer like the MacBook Air for higher GPU workloads, and it's probably even rarer that you're using it to game, even though, yeah, if you get like the right optimized title, you can actually get some decent gaming performance out of the MacBook Air. But again, if you are tempted to upgrade to this higher end 10-core M5 chip on the Air, I would make the recommendation that you actually just bump up the storage to 1 terabyte, because that will actually add on that full 10-core M5 chip automatically for $100 more. So it's kind of like, okay, at that point, if you're gonna upgrade the M5 chip, just add on that 1 terabyte for $100 more. That's a lot of storage, and then you get the full 10-core GPU. And yeah, if you actually care about the GPU, it's also likely that you'll be installing higher end programs and take up more storage, kind of like a pro user on a budget. So that would be my recommendation if you do want that full 10-core chip. But I stress, for most people, I actually recommend that new base model for $1,100 with 512 gigabytes of storage, 16 gigabytes of memory, with the power of the M5 chip. That is a great value MacBook. It is going to handle basic, intermediate, and even advanced tasks at super fast speed. And that is a laptop that is going to serve you well for like the next 10 years. Like, I am not kidding. This thing will last you a while if you take care of it and will provide more than enough power than the everyday user even knows what to do with. Still, the M5 Air isn't a perfect computer because it does have some shortcomings compared to the M5 MacBook Pro. Now, one of those shortcomings isn't performance per se, because for most tasks, the M5 MacBook Air and Pro will behave very similarly, as most tasks utilize short bursts of the CPU. But if you are someone that edits video, plays games, does 3D renders, works with local AI, edits large batches of photos, or does anything that really just stresses the CPU and GPU for an extended period of time, then yes, the M5 MacBook Pro will have better performance, even though it does use the same chip, because it does have a thicker design that allows for an internal fan to help cool off the M4 chip. So the performance is kind of situational, and it's probably not the reason why you should spend $600 more on the MacBook Pro or $400 more if you are comparing them at the same 1 terabyte storage option. The real reason to really go for the Pro for most users is the other benefits that come with it. That includes a much better mini LED 120 Hz ProMotion display that has double the brightness, better picture quality, deeper black levels, a higher contrast ratio, and that super buttery smooth 120 Hz panel. It also has a better speaker system that gets louder and has a deeper bass and more clarity than the MacBook Air, and it has more ports, with the Air only having 2 USB-C Thunderbolt ports, a headphone jack, and a MagSafe charger. The MacBook Pro gets all of that with 1 additional Thunderbolt port on the other side, as well as an HDMI port, an SD card slot, and because of the bigger, thicker design powered by the same M5 chip, that also means that Apple put a bigger battery in the M5 MacBook Pro, and Apple rates it at 24 hours of battery life, while the Air is rated at 18 hours. I think for most users, the display or the additional ports is really the main benefit of going for the base model M5 MacBook Pro. Now, yes, both of these Macs do have other configurations. For the Air, there is an optional 15-inch version, which does get you a bigger screen than the 14-inch MacBook Pro, and you even get a better 6-speaker system that doesn't sound as good as the Pros, but does sound better than the 13-inch Air. That 15-inch model starts at $1,300, but it does come with the higher-powered M5 chip as standard, and it is still 0.1 pounds lighter than the 14-inch MacBook Pro, despite having a bigger screen size. Now, this video is mostly focused on just the base M5 versions because the prices do start to become a little high when you start comparing it against the M5 Pro and the M5 Max chip. And there's a lot of configurations. Like, you go up to like 8 terabytes of storage, 128 gigabytes of memory. It's really aimed at like a true pro level user, not necessarily the consumer level user that I think both of these products are kind of targeted at. But if you are a user that needs tons of power, faster Thunderbolt 5 ports, more memory bandwidth, and so on, well, then you should obviously look at that, but you probably didn't come to this video for advice on those computers. And that's really what I think is the best value here, these cheaper options. And for most users, I actually do recommend the cheapest option out of all of them. I think the M5 MacBook Air represents the best choice for most users. It's the one I recommend, and now that the 256 gigabyte option is removed, I don't have any major recommendations to make. That base model is perfectly fine. It is probably the one you should get. If you need more storage, more memory, or the slightly better M5 chip, then by all means, but I would honestly recommend the base model to most users. It is a good laptop, good build quality. It's thinner and lighter than the MacBook Pro, which is also nice, right? So those are all really good reasons to go for the MacBook Air. And of course, it has the cheapest price point, and everyone loves that. Of course, if you want a better display, more ports, better battery life, and yes, a little bit more performance out of that same 5 chip, then I still do recommend this MacBook Pro. It is still a good buy. It's just a little bit more situational now that it starts with 1 terabyte and they're pushing the price up a little bit higher. It's more of a pro level computer because of that, but still a consumer level option, don't get me wrong. But that is my take on the M5 MacBook Air versus the M5 MacBook Pro. Let me know in the comments below, which one would you pick? And if I missed something, that I didn't cover about the specs in this video, feel free to ask about it and I'll do my best to answer. But as always, thank you for watching, subscribe for more, and I will catch you all in the next one. Maybe not all of you.